Seit jeher rätselt der Mensch über seine Herkunft, seine Entstehung. Die sehen den Ursprung und das Ende. Das ist seine Bestimmung.
Oh. That was quite the cold open, folks. Now I'm certainly gonna go back and check this out frame by frame. Everything is now. Past, present, future, concurrent.
Meine Mutter wollte eine Veränderung.
Is that right?
Deine Mutter ist eine sehr schöne Frau. Ich habe noch nie jemanden gesehen, der so.
That she is. That she is. Huh. She seemed a bit.
Nein, was soll denn Egon dazu sagen? Was soll er schon sagen?
Oh, she got kind of serious there.
Er war Pfarrer.
Whoa.
Aber ich kann nicht sagen, dass er ein Mann von Glauben war.
Ich habe zu Gott gebetet, dass er das Kind wegmacht, noch bevor es geboren war. Und als es da war, habe ich jeden Tag gebetet, dass ihm etwas zusteht.
Oh. That explains it. It's just like Tiedemann coming on Jonas. This time it's a bit different.
Jungs, das kann nicht sein. Die dürfen da gar nicht sein. Ich hab's geändert. Ich hab's doch geändert.
Oh my god.
Ich hab's doch geändert.
He's gonna be stuck in 1953. Well, there was mention of bank robbers earlier.
Hat der Tiedemann gesagt, wer es erzählt hat?
Oh, is this the moment she's gonna make it up?
Wenn ich herausfinde, wer das dem Bullen erzählt hat. Ich mach den fertig.
She's about to toss her under the bus.
Vielleicht weiß Regina. Ich meine, der Tiedemann ist ja ihr Großvater.
Dein Gesicht, dein Blick. Ich kenne den Blick.
Oh.
Ich weiß, dass du Dreck am Stecken hast.
At this moment in time, he's also chasing an older Ulrich in 1953. How insane. How insane. Oh.
Ich will, dass du dich von unserer Familie fernhältst.
You little shit. Man, I do feel bad for Tiedemann though, man. Yes, yes! I've been excited about 1986 Claudia. No! Holy shit. Gretchen! Gretchen time traveled!
Ich weiß, was
Hey.
du gemacht hast. Soll das Rache sein für den Sommer? Ja, keiner wissen, dass du so eine scheiß Mimose bist.
Hey, man, come on.
Ich muss jetzt los.
I'm getting so protective right now, ugh.
Siehst du das hier? Habe ich von meiner Mutter. Und warum? Ist dir nichts Besseres eingefallen?
Komm, Katharina.
Okay.
Das ist so krank, dass ich kotzen möchte.
Hey!
Hey, stopp!
Verpiss dich, das geht dich nichts an.
Ich hab gesagt, ihr sollt aufhören. Entschuldigt euch jetzt bei ihr.
I said that to Ulrich back in a few episodes ago. Oh, holy shit, this...
Ihr zwei haut jetzt ganz schnell ab von hier.
It's gotta be Alexander.
Mach ich euch fertig.
Wie heißt du?
Faithful meeting.
Alexander.
Let's go. That is incredible casting. His eyes actually reminded me of older Alexander. Even like the eye bag area. Wow. Wow. God damn, I love this show, man. Ugh.
Es gibt keine Wahrheit, nur Geschichte. Und die Geschichte dieser Stadt liegt jetzt in deinen...
Wow. Oh. So who's watching him right now? He's being stalked. Ah, God damn it. This man is a go-getter. That's for sure.
Ich bin Alexander.
Whoa. Whoa.
Ich will das nicht mehr. Oh, würde Gott all das hier wollen? Der Mensch ist schlecht, niederträchtig, böse.
Man, this dude.
Eine einzige Spirale von Verletzungen. Und die Welt ist so verdammt unterzugehen. Aber das hier, das ist unsere Arche.
Noah's Ark. Jesus, Hannah. So what's the play here, Hannah? Is she gonna go to Alexander or... Jesus.
Wo ist Ulrich? Ich dachte, der ist bei dir. Ich habe versucht, ihn zu erreichen, aber sein Handy ist aus. Unser Kind ist weg und hat nichts Besseres zu tun, als diese Fotze zu finden.
Ah. At least someone's having fun. Jonas. Yeah.
Mann, ich bin's. Jetzt meld dich doch endlich mal.
I love this show so much. I love these characters so much.
Verlogenes Stück Scheiße.
Scheiße.
Wie lange geht das schon, hä? Ein Monat? Halbes Jahr? Oder länger? Ich.
Oh my god.
Ich weiß
Katharina
nicht,
is
wo
so
mein Kind
scary.
ist. Und ich weiß auch nicht, wo mein Mann ist.
She has every right to be, though.
Verstehst du? Hast du daran gedacht, als du ihm deinen mickrigen Arsch entgegengestreckt hast, hä?
I shouldn't laugh, but...
Ich habe es beendet.
Come on.
Wollte das alles nur?
Jesus. Let's see if Katharina buys any of this.
Er hat gesagt, dass er dich nicht mehr liebt.
Jesus.
Also, mich liebt.
She told Ulrich. She's not gonna let him go just like that. This is a bitter, broken individual right here. Hateful. Naomi Bartosz. Holy shit.
Ich bin Claudia, deine Großmutter. Ist deine Mutter da?
Meine Mutter hat gesagt, du bist vor meiner Geburt gestorben.
Oh, wow.
Mutter hat dir sicherlich eine Menge Geschichten über mich erzählt.
Warum hat Mama mir gesagt, dass du tot bist?
Für deine Mama bin ich das sicherlich auch. Ich war keine sonderlich gute Mutter, weißt du?
She knows.
Wenn du nicht tot bist, wo warst du denn in den letzten Jahren?
That's the real question, homie.
Das ist eine lange Geschichte.
Ha, I bet it is.
Ich dir eines Tages. Ich möchte, dass du ihr das gibst. Machst du das für mich? Das war noch davor, vor dem Sommer und allem, was danach kam.
A lot of regrets there.
Ich habe sehr viel falsch gemacht damit.
Casino acting, man. Fantastic acting there.
Glaub mir, wenn ich die Zeit zurückdrehen könnte. Ich würde vieles anders machen.
God. A scene like that could give me goosebumps in this show. It's just incredible. Bro, what is her deal?
Ich will, dass du Ulrich fertig machst.
He's not even around anymore. She's so pretty and innocent looking.
Boris Niewald. Interessanter Name. Ich finde, er passt viel besser zu dir.
Yet, she has this side to her. It's a great character, folks. It really is. I'm not gonna lie.
Hallo.
He knows that that's his aunt. He's been avoiding this.
Was ist los?
Du musst los?
Fair play. Fair
Kannst
enough.
du mir mal sagen, was es soll?
Yeah.
Ich meine, ich versuche dich seit Tagen zu erreichen und du schreibst es mal zurück.
I mean, Bartosz was in the same position, right? Trying to reach her.
Das war nicht richtig.
You see Katharina's out here quite angry. Now Marta's out here quite angry.
Wir passen einfach nicht, okay?
Not a good match.
Ich möchte, dass du mir einen Gefallen tust.
I mean, the thing is, Ulrich's not here anymore.
Über Ulrich. Alles, was
Whoa.
sie sein könnte. In ein paar Tagen. Wenn alles ruhiger geworden ist,
Holy shit.
bringen wir die Fässer zurück.
He's an insider. Goddamn rat. Or he's on the payroll, essentially. Corrupt cop. Shit. This is gonna be... Yeah. There's a photo of Mikkel on the wall. The newspaper clipping. Unless he took it down. Yeah, that's not even the main... Oh my god. There it is. I mean... Theseus and the Minotaur. How cool. How cool. The continuation of this. That is some ride he's got there.
Sie hatten recht. Alles ist so eingetreten, wie sie es vorher gesagt haben.
Oh.
Hast du über mein Angebot nachgedacht?
Oh my god, is he trying to draft another person like Helge?
Ja. Wann fange ich an?
Oh, he's the one who shut it, huh? Oh, he's gonna take a bit of it?
Kann ich Ihnen helfen? Ich habe eigentlich schon geschlossen.
What you got there in your hands?
Ich möchte, dass Sie das für mich bauen.
Was soll das sein?
It's a contraption.
Sagen wir, es ist etwas, das den Lauf der Zeit gerade rücken wird.
Oh, is that it? Oh, that flew by, man. All right, folks, how about that for an immediate answer to the question I had in the last episode, in the conclusion of the last episode? The question, how come Tannhaus built the contraption in the first place, right? Up until the last episode, I thought maybe, it is the stranger, potentially future Jonas. I'm still going to say potentially until it's officially confirmed, but essentially, my thought process on that was, okay, so he's going to bring it to him, and he does pull it out, but the big moment later was the fact that he pulls out a pristine contraption, the one he built himself, clearly. So that made it clear that it wasn't the stranger who brought this contraption to his attention. He might have brought some of the details and the specifics of it to his attention, that it does kind of replicate the conditions required to create this wormhole or open up this wormhole that the incident created. And again, some more insight on the incident. Though, of course, you see Claudia tries to dig a bit further, right? Tries to get a bit more out of Doppler, head honcho Doppler, who almost kind of challenges her to, kind of spit it out, get it out there. What exactly do you think could have happened, right? But it kind of just ends off there. She didn't really spit it out. She didn't come out with it. And of course, this was brought on because of that really strange experience for her of seeing her long lost dog, Gretchen, show up 33 years later after disappearing, right? So yeah, that right there was Claudia's first experience with time travel, right? Now, I'll circle back to Tannhaus, but I'm on the topic of Gretchen. That's one of the questions now, right? How exactly did Gretchen make it through, right? Now, of course, the first thought is Gretchen also made it through the door, right? The gates. But of course, Gretchen cannot open the gates. So, two options here. Either someone opened the gate and let Gretchen through, or there's something else going on there as well. But, if someone did open the gate or, did guide the dog through, I wouldn't be shocked if it was older Claudia, 2019 Claudia, who's clearly been beyond 2019 as well. Again, that was the great setup in the last episode as well. A glimpse of Claudia. Here she's not as scary as she appears to be in those photos and in that, shot of her in the bunker. In fact, Claudia is one of the most exciting characters of the show at this point. Be it 1986 Claudia, who is just starting to tumble down the rabbit hole, or be it the 2019 and beyond Claudia. Yeah, really exciting character. And, that was one of the best parts of this episode, right? That cliffhanger ending telling Tannhaus that this is something that is going to set the course of time straight. So here you have yet another major player who is trying to fix the timelines, right? Or set things straight, right? It's her goal to set things straight. So yeah, I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but I love that there's multiple time travelers, multiple major characters that are in the know, right? Of course, the two that immediately come to mind are Stranger, potentially future Jonas, and now Claudia, right? Who's been, really missing from the show up until recently. But yeah, 2019 Claudia is certainly firmly established into the grand scheme of things and as a major player. So you have these two, right, that are certainly experienced time travelers. And again, from the looks of it, they've been to a hellish future as well. And then you also have characters like Noah, right? Yeah, Noah is also established finally. You know, I had glimpses of Noah earlier, after initially being, you know, presented as a character. Now this episode really kind of gets into a lot of detail about Noah and his disposition, his stance, his motives, the type of person he is. You know, to me, since episode 1, right, it felt like it's not as simple as good and evil. You see that he is kind of grooming these individuals, and it feels like he's just kind of groomed another one in Bartosz, who's certainly up for this proposal of his, right? Because he kind of convinced him by these predictions of his, right? Now, Noah is a time traveler, so he was able to, you know, tell him things that are going to happen from the sounds of things, and, you know, that clearly convinced Bartosz to join up, right? Join up this proposal of his. So, you know, slippery slope for Bartosz. But in that sense, you know, there's also given this setup, given the setup of these, you know, crazy connections that are kind of going on, you know, it's not even that far-fetched to think that maybe Noah might possibly be a future Bartosz, maybe, right? Like, to me, it doesn't feel like a far-fetched thing to throw out there, right? That there might be some kind of connection here. I mean, it's not far-fetched at all, because the show itself, the story itself, has established that everything is connected, that there's all these connections. And I feel like, you know, this notion of these you know, connections between characters, family connections, the family trees, I feel like it's going to escalate as the show progresses, as the story progresses, you know, in this next episode, the finale, and beyond in season 2 and 3, right? There's actually a group of characters that are still only shown in their 2019 selves, essentially. And I am speaking of characters like Bartosz and his young counterparts, such as Magnus, Franziska, Marta, right? You know, I was gonna say Jonas, but then of course Jonas, there's a really good chance, like nearly 100% chance, that I've seen a future iteration or future version of Jonas, right? So I've seen that at least. But you know, there are a handful of characters that I've only seen one version of so far, 2019, because of course they're too young to have younger versions in the 86 lineup. Or sorry, in the 86 timeline or the 53 timeline. But yeah, you know, in that sense, this was such a fantastic penultimate episode, right? Kind of established all the characters. And again, that goes back to the opening. The phenomenal opening gives us a raw take, you know, unmasked, nothing to hide. You know, you have these beautiful, you know, stunning portrait shots as Tannhaus is, you know, of course, an authority on the matter. And of course, Tannhaus's role in all of this is quite substantial from the looks of it. And yeah, I'm quite happy about that Tannhaus is in the focus now. You know, it is near the conclusion of the first season now. I have the finale left to go, but yeah, I'm quite happy that Tannhaus is a major player in this series. Though, of course, you know, the thing here is that a lot of these time travelers realize that Tannhaus is important to all of this, and they kind of come to him. You know, you've got the stranger that comes to him. You've got future Claudia, right? 2019 Claudia, who's been even further than 2019, perhaps. You see that Ulrich from 2019 showed up, right? And he left his cell phone behind. He left his jacket behind. He showed him the book, and he actually might still have the book on him, right? So that in itself is probably going to play a part in him writing the book at some point, right? Again, a lot of bootstrap paradoxes are in effect at this point in time, and a lot of them are kind of based around Tannhaus and some of these things, you know, be it the book, be it the contraption itself, right? Be it perhaps the blueprints even, right? Yes, I got an answer to my question, you know, how come Tannhaus built it in the first place? But, you know, one thing being answered kind of leads to a few more questions, right? Now, the new question is, how come Claudia has the blueprints in the first place? And, you know, where exactly did she get the blueprints? Now, of course, the blueprints have to come from the future at some point, right? And again, you know, these blueprints are clearly kind of presented in a manner that someone from 1953, again, not just someone that is quite talented, quite impressive in Tannhaus, is going to be able to follow. And he does follow it, as I've seen it already. He makes the thing. He makes a contraption. And there's two of them, right? The pristine one he has on him, the one he built. And from the looks of it, it looks like it took him years, decades to actually get it done, right? And then, of course, the one the stranger brought, right? The one that's kaput, the one that needs fixing. So again, there's that notion again. Multiple copies of the same thing, yet it is the same thing, right? You've got the letter, you've got potentially the notebook that Noah carries, and then Trante Nielsen also has the same notebook. From the looks of it, from the reoccurring narrative device in this episode, showing us the contraption at play, right? The cylinders coming out one by one, and then of course all three are out and in effect, and then you see the glow, the blue light in the background there, in the contraption itself. So yeah, it looks like it's ready. It's ready for use. But the really interesting thing here, the really fascinating thing here is the fact that yes, Tannhaus is presented as this really intelligent and impressive and talented individual, yet a lot of these things are kind of falling into his lap. He got the blueprints from Claudia in 1953, and it takes him decades to make it. And again, he doesn't actually know what exactly he was making because, Stranger had to explain to him in the last episode, in the 1986 timeline, that this actually makes time travel possible. It kind of recreates or replicates the conditions required to initiate that wormhole, right? So yeah, he didn't even know he was making this contraption that kind of allows time travel to be possible. So how crazy is that, right? He spent decades making it, following the blueprint, and clearly he was able to do it, right? But just recently in the last episode, he actually found out what exactly he was making all these years. And I got a quick glimpse of the stranger right at the end there. You see he kind of climbs into the truck that has the radioactive material. And it looks like he's about to take a sample of some of it, right? So yeah, let's see if this is something else that he might take back to Tannhaus. But yeah, just a quick glimpse of the stranger. I'm guessing I'll see much more of him in the finale. I'm guessing I'll see much more of pretty much everyone. And of course, I'm incredibly excited for this finale. I mean, this might be the most excited I've been in a long time for a finale to any show. Long time. And I hope it's extra long and super juicy, right? Because there's a lot to cover, right? Again, it's probably going to have that feeling of the really peak years of Game of Thrones finales, right? Because they had to kind of allocate enough time to each storyline, kind of, wrap it up for that season, leave it off on a solid note that can be picked up, in the next season, in the opening of the next season. So yeah, it's going to have to do a lot of that because, again, going back to that incredible opening, there's a lot of characters in this show. And, the really impressive thing is that, all of them are fascinating. All of them are, intriguing. Like I mentioned a few times now, I get excited to see all the different characters. The thing I'm noticing here is the fact that anytime I'm in a specific timeline, be it 56, 53, 86, and 2019, I start missing some of the other characters, right? So if I'm in 56, I start missing the characters of the 86 and 2019 timeline. If I'm in 2019, I begin to miss the characters in the 86 and 53 timeline, and so on, right? So yeah, that again, that's a great credit to the established characters in these 9 episodes. I mean, it's easily one of the strongest ensemble cast of characters I've had the pleasure of watching in a long time. And, again, it always goes back to episode 1, right? It circles back to episode 1, and that just the incredible setup in that episode. I mean, there was just some clear-cut setup that I'm about to see a fantastic ensemble cast on display. And yep, it's lived up to it. So yeah, once again, I find myself really complimenting that pilot episode. Really is quite an effective pilot episode. And, I was even telling a friend recently that I'm actually quite proud of that. It's probably one of the best ones I've done in terms of, beginning a new show, and in terms of, the the things I was able to extract from that episode, again, it's a mix of it just being a fantastic setup episode for the rest of the series, right? But yeah, I thought I did a solid job of extracting a lot of those things. So yeah, I'm quite proud of episode 1. I'd probably put it up there as one of my best on YouTube, easily, right? Top 5, top 3 even. But I can't even remember my original point now. I'm so far off on a tangent at this point. I think I was talking about Claudia bringing the blueprints, right? But yes, Tannhaus. So like I was mentioning, a lot of these really important things are kind of falling into his lap. But that in itself, there's a reason for that, right? Because, I mean, they're falling into his lap specifically, or they're being brought to him specifically because these individuals, these time travelers, they know that this is the person that can kind of follow these things and make these things kind of happen, right? Even if he's not entirely sure, what exactly he's making, or, that these individuals are time travelers. And, as of this point, I haven't seen any inclination that the 1953 Tannhaus is kind of obsessed or really interested in time travel, or the notion of time, or the idea of time travel. So maybe even that kind of came about because of these things kind of falling into his lap, and then he actually did take an interest. I mean, the book he ends up writing kind of came to his younger self, right? So he doesn't even have to really write it, right? If he does have the copy, I can't remember. Yeah. Ulrich left his jacket behind, right? So he has the copy of his own book. I mean, that book is the final product from a future Tannhaus. So all this Tannhaus really has to do is kind of publish it, right? So does the 1953 Tannhaus kind of, read this book that the future Tannhaus writes, and then he really becomes infatuated with all this time travel aspect of it, right? So yeah, again, a lot of fantastic time travel stuff going on here. I mean, the bootstrap paradox is firmly on display throughout these first 9 episodes in a lot of different cases, for a lot of these objects. And, a lot of these incidents, like in the last episode, that whole idea of, 2019 Helga in the old folks' home, telling Ulrich, oh, I can change the past, I can change the future. And then, in the next episode, in the last episode, you see Ulrich is saying that to young Helga, right? So again, there's no origin. Now, the whole idea of Claudia, future Claudia, or well, I mean, yeah, she is future Claudia because 86 is the present timeline. But again, it was clear that she's been to a different timeline beyond 2019 as well. She's bringing Tannhaus the blueprints in the 53 timeline, right? And of course, these blueprints come from the future. But then I also know for a fact that Stranger ends up having the contraption at some point. And again, you see that it's been utilized quite a bit. It's been put to use quite a bit. And again, like you mentioned, it's kaput and I need you to fix it. So how does that exchange happen? How does, the Stranger end up having the contraption? I think I brought up that possibility of future Claudia and Stranger actually potentially, knowing each other. This kind of almost makes that possibility even more likely at this point. And of course, you see the crafty and resourceful Tannhaus seems to have solved the problem of the battery on the cell phone. So that, that was one of the things I was talking about, right, in the last episode, that he only has a limited amount of time to scope this out, just as long as the battery lasts. I mean, it looks like he's kind of solved that problem. Now before I move on from this, cliffhanger, let's do a rundown of the things the 1953 Tannhaus has in his possession now. Of course, the cell phone, future tech. I'm guessing it's probably going to end up playing a part in the creation of the contraption, right? I'm guessing it's going to play some part, right? Then he has the blueprint for this contraption that I do know he ends up building. And he has a book. He has the book that his future self writes. He has that in his possession as well. He has the jacket in his possession. That in itself is also from the future, right? The jacket itself. Maybe there could be some use of that as well. Oh, okay. I kind of remember one of the points I was trying to make much earlier before I kind of got, distracted into some other points. I was speaking of some of these 2019 characters, some of the younger characters, Magnus, Franziska, Marta, Bartosz, right? This is season 1. I do expect to see different versions of them as well at some point, right? Because I've seen, different versions of so many of these characters. And again, it was certainly on display in the beginning, that incredible opening. that begins with Jonas, ends with future Jonas, and then the final person in the show is Noah, who only has one version, right? And he's kind of present in all the different timelines. He travels to all the different timelines, essentially. All right, but the thing is, if I do see future versions of any of those characters, it has to be beyond the 2019 lineup, or sorry, timeline, right? Because as firmly established in the last episode, I think, 86 is a present timeline, and 53 is the past, and 2019 is a future. So if I was to see a future Bartosz, or a future Franziska, or future Magnus, or future Marta, it would have to be beyond the 2019 timeline. And again, I've seen a glimpse of a timeline that seems to be beyond 2019. But again, speaking of the character focus, a few of them are certainly in the spotlight, be it Katarina, be it Hannah, be it Alexander Tiedemann or Boris, right? I got a bit of a backstory. I mean, it's a pretty substantial backstory, how he kind of comes into town, seems to have been some kind of, I don't know, bank robber or some kind of thief on the run, some kind of criminal on the run, right? And, kind of runs into Regina, and that kind of leads him to meeting Regina's mother. And I already liked Alexander Tiedemann or Boris, but even his younger self, I really liked him as well, right? Coming to Regina's rescue, even though he's not really in the best shape at the moment in time, but he felt the need to step up for her, even though he's kind of in a really difficult position as he is on the run. And of course, Katarina is certainly on the offensive, be it in the 86 line or sorry, in timeline, or the 2019 timeline. And again, like I mentioned, she has the right to be angry. I mean, certainly in the 2019 timeline, because a lot of things are just not happening, right? They're going against her. Her son's missing. She knows that her husband's been unfaithful, and she knows she's known the person her entire life, her adult life, essentially. Hannah, bit of a confrontation there at Hannah's house. Though, of course, Hannah was able to almost immediately kind of slay the bully in that sense, right? She was really able to take down Katarina, or, really able to handle that aggressive nature of hers and kind of brought it down. And it came to her naturally, right? That was one of the big things about this episode. Hannah, oh my goodness. Yeah, this individual is vindictive. She's hateful. She's possessive. She feels like she's owed. The universe owes her. And, for her, there's this thing about, taking it from others. And only then does it really matter, right? She kind of has this chip on her shoulder that, she deserves the things these other people have. And of course, deceit and manipulation and lies just come to her naturally, right? She excels at that. At a moment's notice, she was able to just kind of, spin up this story, putting all of the blame on Ulrich, right? And Katarina was quite emotional, and she ended up buying it. Just like, in 86, she ended up buying that, slim idea that Hannah kind of put out there, right? She just put it out there. She didn't even say, oh, it is Regina for sure. She just said, maybe it's Regina, right? She kind of put it out there. But even in 86, she is quite emotional at that moment in time. So she really latched onto that idea. And, in her headspace, she kind of attached the notion of Regina, wanting to get back at her or them. Yeah, right, for bullying her. But yeah, like I just mentioned, Hannah kind of finessed her quite easily, right? Quite effectively, and it doesn't seem like she's stopping anytime soon, because, she's put something else into motion. She blackmails Alexander Tiedemann next, or Boris, into, destroying Ulrich, right? She wants him destroyed. She wants him finished. But of course, she doesn't even know it yet, but he's not even around. He's not around in 2019. He's stuck in 1953. He got caught. Tiedemann caught him, right? That was a big moment. Is he going to return, or is he going to be caught? And he might be stuck there. Like, I don't see how he could possibly get out now, right? He's in custody at this point. Wow. So that in itself is another unique possibility that's been set up here. Ulrich having to kind of live out the rest of his life in 1953. So much like his son Mikkel, the same thing's repeating here. He is also kind of stuck in a different timeline. And as of this point, young Egon Tiedemann has every right to think that this crazed individual killed those kids, right? And, Ulrich himself is also confessing, I killed Helga, young Helga. Though, of course, Helga doesn't die. He does end up coming to, and, like I mentioned, Ulrich kind of plays his part in making all of this possible now, right? Predestination paradox. But yeah, he's open about it. And the things he's saying really do make him sound like a madman to anyone who doesn't subscribe to the idea or notion of time traveling. So yeah, to Egon Tiedemann, this is a clear-cut murder suspect, right? And yeah, he does appear to be a crazed madman from the things he's saying. So yeah, he's in big trouble. He might be stuck in 1953 from this point on. I mean, there's a really good chance of that at this point. And in that sense, you see that this almost eternal animosity, this never-ending cycle almost, the eternal rivals, Egon Tiedemann and Ulrich Nielsen. Yeah, you see, now it starts to make sense, right? The reason 86 Tiedemann, older Tiedemann, has such a hard-on for young Ulrich, right? Because he's seen him before, right? He arrested him on suspicion of murder already, right? Now, he doesn't know or realize that this is the same individual, but he feels or he recognizes that stare, that look. So, here you see that this is almost kind of setting into motion this loop of sorts, actually, right? This endless resentment that Egon Tiedemann and Ulrich have at different points in time. As I'm on the topic of the 1953 timeline, let's talk about Agnes Nielsen. In this episode, it's almost kind of like on the nose at this point that, they're implying that Noah is her ex, right? But, she's saying that her husband died, right? And the implication being in the last episode that maybe she had a part to play in that, right? As she kind of gives Trante that look. It's possible it could be a misdirect. It could be a red herring. And that this might not be the individual that's meant to be her husband or her late husband, right? Because, she kind of comes to this town to escape, essentially, right? To get a new start. But, he's here too, right? So there is something going on here. And, Agnes Nielsen herself is a bit of a suspicious figure. I mean, that much was clear since the moment she approaches older Ulrich in the last episode. I mean, this show is far too intelligent to have a moment that plays out like that. To have a coincidence like that, okay, his own grandma has come across him. Like I was just saying, it's really on the nose, some of the things she's describing about her husband, her late husband, it kind of perfectly matches Noah, right? And of course, there's even the cut. It cuts straight to Noah and Helgi's mom, right? Who it appears that she might have been assaulted, right? And that explains her attitude towards Helga. Remember I mentioned that I'm not even sure if this is his actual biological mom. It appears that it is, but, you see the resentment she has for young Helga. It's starting to make sense. You see that maybe she had Helga in some difficult conditions, right? She's openly telling Noah, who she believes to be this priest, right? Even though it's been established that Noah doesn't even believe in God, right? He's got his own agenda, his own motivations. I'll get into that in a bit, but, she's openly telling him that she prayed that she loses this child, right? Or something happens to him. And of course, now something has happened to him and he's kind of fallen into the clutches of Noah, right? Or, this Noah is the name this individual gave himself, right? Because he's kind of, drawing a parallel to Noah's Ark. So I don't really have his real name yet, right? He gave himself that name. It could be from an affair, right? It's possible. And that's another reason she didn't really want to have the child because she's married to Doppler. But speaking of Doppler, I've got to say he is probably one of the best portrayals of a father in this episode or in this story, or best in the sense that he is. You see that it doesn't matter to him It doesn't matter to him if Helge might not be his actual, biological son. You see that he supported Helge all the way through. I mean, him and Helge are still, kind of tight in the 1986 timeline. I mean, they're certainly in contact, right? He's at the power plant as well, but his wife isn't in the picture anymore, right? In 1986. I mean, in that sense, a lot of these female characters from the 53 timeline are not around anymore, be it 86 or 2019. Yeah, Agnes isn't around. Helge's mother isn't around. Egon Tiedemann's wife isn't around. So yeah, that's certainly strange that, a lot of these female characters are not around anymore. But, speaking of Agnes, you see that she gets she does get agitated at the mention of Egon Tiedemann. You could tell that Agnes is trying to help her kind of break loose or be a bit more free, right? More free thinking. So yeah, Agnes is really introduced really late in the game in this season, in this first season. But yeah, she's certainly quite an intriguing character. And then again, it's not as simple as her just being Ulrich's grandma showing up here and her running into Ulrich in the last episode, right? There's clearly much more than meets the eye with Agnes. And you see she was actually quite, lost in her thoughts. She seemed to be a bit upset before Tiedemann's wife came in, and she kind of puts on this smile, right? So yeah, Agnes Nielsen, let's see. Maybe the next episode might be too early to get more backstory, but I'm certainly excited to see more of Agnes Nielsen. And, this husband she keeps mentioning, and the connection being Noah, right? And then, jumping to the 86 timeline, you see that indeed 2019, Helge did travel to 1986, and he's kind of stalking his younger self at that moment in time. And then, then that kind of reminds me of, that idea they brought up, or not idea, that point they brought up about Helge being in an accident a few days from now, right, in 1986. So that still needs to happen. I'm guessing there is a strong possibility of that playing out in the next episode, in the finale, perhaps. So yeah, he gets into yet another accident, right? I mean, his initial accident being this traumatizing experience as a child, a near-death experience. And again, that's one of the things Noah mentions to him. You've experienced hell, right? You've been there. And the fact that his older self is there, does that mean maybe his older self might have a part to play in this, right? Potential accident that they've set up now. So let's see, the whole reason 2019 Helge goes into the caves and now he's time traveled is because he wants to change things, right? He wants to make Noah stop. That was one of the earlier setups, right? He has to stop. And, he told Ulrich that he can change the past, he can change the future. So he's going to try something, right? He's going to do something to be able to, or in an attempt to change things, right? And I'm speaking of the 2019 older Helge from the old folks home. Though he looked like he was all there at the moment, right? As he's kind of stalking his younger self. And, sticking on the 86 timeline, you see that, yes, Alexander or Boris kind of gets into the power plant, again, started from the bottom, right? And he does end up kind of taking over in 2019 timeline, right? So that progression kind of starting at the bottom and then pretty much ousting Claudia, and Claudia's kind of just gone from the picture at that point in 2019. And it's not just that. It's not just the fact that he takes over as the head honcho at the power plant. He also kind of takes over that mansion, the Doppler residence, and kind of gives it to Regina to run as a hotel. So there's something else going on there as well. Is Alexander or Boris himself also guilty of blackmailing, right? And maybe he knew the things Doppler and Claudia are trying to hide. So yeah, let's see how that plays out. And of course, Alexander has an informant, an insider, someone on the payroll, and it's the eye patch guy. Once again, I can't remember his name, but yeah, he's an insider. He's had him on the inside, kind of helping him out, tipping him off. Now he wants all the dirt on Ulrich Nielsen. Because, again, now he's being blackmailed by Hannah. So yeah, let's see how that plays out. But again, most of them don't even know this, but Ulrich isn't even around in that timeline in 2019. But then, sticking to 2019, Tiedemann family, Regina at the hotel. She goes into the stranger's room, number 8, right? And he did tell her he would like to keep it. And yeah, he left it just like that. So she's in there now. She's seen all of this really strange setup in the room. I mean, for someone who has no idea about any of this, surely she's quite spooked. You know, she's probably thinking that, you know, the stranger individual is someone she should tell the cops about. Or I'm sure she's going to tell Alexander. But yeah, you know, especially because, you know, there's clip out or cutouts of Mikkel on the wall as well. I mean, of course, if any normal person goes in there, their first thought is going to be, okay, there's a crazy person in here, you know, and he's got this missing kid's clipping on the wall and he's posing questions and I don't know, right? I think Regina is probably going to tell someone about this. And then, of course, staying on Tiedemann, Claudia Tiedemann, older Claudia Tiedemann, goes to see Regina, right? But again, Regina's not home, but she does run into Bartosz. Now, you know, I think Bartosz's reaction here should be noted. He wasn't really that surprised, right, to find out that his grandma's alive, right? It was pretty nonchalant, pretty just, right? There's nothing there really in his reaction. He just kind of talks to her normally. And, you know, at that one point, you know, she said, it's a long story. I'll tell you about it sometime. And he was quite eager to hear from her about that, right? Is there a possibility that this is one of the things that Noah predicted, right? And maybe he told her that, yes, your grandma might come to see you, right? And it's happened. And maybe is that the reason he was so eager to hear more from his grandma? But yeah, you know, Bartosz is caught up in something now. You know, Noah kind of roped in another one. So let's see how it plays out for Bartosz, man. It's a slippery slope. But again, you know, I brought up that notion earlier. Could this even potentially be future Bartosz speaking with his younger self? I don't know. You know, it doesn't seem that far-fetched to make connections like that in this show, given the things I've seen in these 9 episodes. There could be some kind of connection there, that he felt that he has to approach Bartosz specifically. And, you know, speaking of Claudia, like I mentioned, there's some great acting on display. You see that she has a lot of regrets. You know, she knows she failed as a mother, that she was a terrible mother to Regina, and she actually wishes that if she could go back in time, she would do things differently, right? And, you know, that kind of brings up that notion. Yes, she knows about time travel, you know, she's time traveled already, but like here you have her saying if she could go back in time and change things, right, she would do it differently, meaning everything that was meant to happen has already happened or is going to happen, right? So she can't, right? So that's why she's saying she wishes, but she can't, even if she does travel back in time, because everything's happening at the same time concurrently. But, you know, there is an individual that is certainly the focus in this episode, Noah, that thinks otherwise, right? His take on the universe and time is a bit different, right? He thinks it's all chaos, right? That there's no order, there's no God, there's no plan. You know, God doesn't have a plan. He, you know, in that sense, here's a character who does feel like humans have a choice, that humans do have control of their own destinies. But yeah, you see that this individual, Noah, he certainly has grand plans. I mean, he plans on being the god of this new creation of his, right? This utopia that he has in mind. You know, the setup of him being the Antichrist, or the devil has been it's kind of been like this ongoing thing for a few episodes now, right? And in that sense, maybe you can even say that, you know, this imagery of a god and devil, you can maybe even say Tannhaus is kind of being presented as a god figure in that imagery, right? In that comparison, if Noah and his motives and his desires and his thought process and all of this kind of links him to being a devil or the Antichrist. And of course, you know, there's that whole notion of individuals trying to ascend to godlike entities, right? Or becoming godlike figures, right? Time and time again, you see that individuals who try to play God almost always get punished, right? They almost always have a demise. So yeah, you know, Noah here certainly feels like he has free choice, and humans have free choice. And he is certainly trying to establish something here. He's trying to achieve something quite grand, and he's kind of roped Helga into it. And, you know, I bring up that notion of, or the idea of Tannhaus potentially being the god figure in this, because, you know, you see his stance on this, his philosophy on the universe and time, he does feel like there is a predictability and there is an order to things in time in the universe, right? And that humans have their part to play, a predetermined part to play, right? Everything's kind of, written, set in stone. Again, the opposite to Noah's thought process on this. But even if I remove the notion of Tannhaus being the God figure in this, his ideas can be kind of presented as opposite to Noah's ideas, right? So yeah. But yeah, it's fascinating to see these opposing philosophies at play here, through the different characters, the major players of this story at this point. And, again, they made it clear since episode 1 that, yeah, religion is playing a major part in this as well, right? And again, the opening, it goes back to that incredible opening of this episode, right? God and evolution, right? If you're able to experience the beginning and the end at the same time, could that question finally be answered, right? And again, it does end off on Noah, just the one version of Noah. Oh, also, I just remembered, I kind of wanted to do a bit of a breakdown or kind of rundown in terms of potential parents for some of these characters and, question marks that are kind of established at this point, stuff I need answers to, be it characters like Charlotte, I don't know who her parents are. I know her grandfather is Tannhaus, right? So, what's the story there? How about Regina's father? That's still up in the air as well. I know Claudia's her mother, but who's the father, right? Who is Trante's father? Who is Agnes's husband, right? Who is, let's see, Helge's father? Is that going to be a big thing? Is that going to, come into play at some point? Helge's biological father. And then, speaking of Helge, is Helge Peter Doppler's biological father, right? Given the fact that they haven't shown me even a hint, right, of Helge having a partner or potential wife at some point, yet he's fathered Peter Doppler. I don't know, it's starting to feel really unlikely as episodes go on, right? So there's something there as well, potentially, Peter Doppler. And this episode, they confirmed that indeed Katharina does have abusive parents, or her mother specifically, so I don't know her mother yet. Is this going to be a brand new character, or is this going to be someone I recognize from some of these older timelines, maybe? I don't know. But the fact that they haven't shown her parents just yet, or her mother just yet, maybe it could mean something. Let's see. But yeah, confirmed as expected. Yeah, she had abusive parents, and that kind of, played out in how she kind of behaves, a bit of a bully herself, aggressive personality. And, if indeed Noah is meant to be Agnes's ex-husband, or this husband that apparently died, then that would make it Trante's father and Ulrich's grandfather. And of course, that would also make him, related to Jonas as well, right? Down that tree essentially. But as of this point, it does feel like a bit too on the nose that Noah is meant to be this husband of hers. But yeah, a lot of fantastic setup for this finale. And again, I love the structure of this episode. I really appreciate it. And I've noticed that every single episode of this show has had its own unique storytelling device, right? Each episode's kind of felt a bit different in how it kind of tells its story in that time span. This show has been really impressive. And it feels like nothing is lagging behind. Everything is on par. Everything is on level terms, be it the acting, the photography, the score, the script, the editing, right? Everything feels like it's in unison. And it makes for some damn good television, some damn good storytelling, some of the best I've seen. And, I'm completely just infatuated with this show, with this story. Ooh, one last thing, Franziska's hoodie. I noticed that cube, I noticed a flat circle, and I noticed the pentagon, right? It had 5 points. So, that is something I'm certainly going to keep in mind. It might feel like it's just a hoodie, but I feel like those shapes are a bit too recognizable. And the things that are attached to those specific shapes, be it the cube, the flat circle, and the 5 sides. The 5 sides is the one that's kind of, I don't know, but the cube and the flat circle, yeah. Those certainly come into play in terms of time travel, right? And time traveling ideas. So yeah, I'm certainly going to keep that in mind. And you know, that's one of the things. There's a lot of, you know, foreshadowing or hints and symbolism in plain sight in any given frame. If you look for it, it's there. And of course, you know, the transitional hinge is being used to perfection. Once again, you see that each time a scene kind of changes, it transitions to someone from their family, right? It was quite noticeable in this, the progression. So yeah, I think that's about it for this one. You know, if I forgot something, I'll probably bring it up in a jumbo-sized finale, most likely. Yeah, I'm guessing the post-episode portion is going to be quite lengthy for that finale. So yeah, I'll probably bring up everything that I want to talk about in that. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in early access or maybe even full length, the link is in the description or the pinned comment. And you know, this has been the most difficult show I've ever had to edit in terms of bringing it down to 10 minutes. It takes me so much longer to edit this down to 10 minutes than anything else I've done on the channel before. Because sometimes it's kind of tough to tell, you know, should I leave this in? Should I? Because it feels like everything is important, right? There's so many scenes that feel like they're so important, and then, you know, it gets really tricky to figure out if I should leave this in, if people want to see this rather than that, right? So it's been difficult editing this down to 10 minutes, these past 9 episodes at this point. But yeah, that's about it for this one. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon for the finale. So until then, take it easy.